Have you ever noticed the people who talk the most often understand the least, and the ones who stay silent, the calm ones, the still ones, somehow hold the room without even trying? That's not coincidence. That's power. A kind of power the Stoics mastered long before our world learned to shout. You see, silence isn't weakness, it's control. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove myself to be at peace with myself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." In a world where everyone rushes to speak, that might be the most radical act of strength there is. Stay with me, because this video might just shift how you think about power, respect, and the kind of presence that doesn't need words to command attention. And if you find even a spark of truth in what I'm saying, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's walk through this lesson together. Now, let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met an old man at a cafe in Boston. He sat alone every morning, same corner, same cup of coffee, same quiet gaze. People greeted him, chatted, even tried to draw him into conversation, but he rarely spoke. One day I finally asked, "Don't you ever feel lonely, sitting here in silence every day?" He smiled, a calm, almost amused smile, and said, "No, son. I just like hearing life talk before I decide if it's worth answering." That line has lived with me for years, because that man understood something the rest of us forget. Silence isn't emptiness. It's awareness. It's the space where you decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Seneca warned, "It is better to be silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt." But he wasn't encouraging fear. He was teaching discernment. Every word you choose not to say builds strength within you. Every pause becomes an act of wisdom. So here's the first lesson. Silence is not the absence of words. It's the mastery of them. In a noisy world, the quiet mind is the most powerful. If you've ever been told you're too quiet, maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe it's your greatest strength. And if this message resonates with you, pause for a moment, like a Stoic would, and show it some love. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go even deeper. Because the story of silence has only just begun. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who was publicly humiliated. People laughed at him, mocked him, called him weak, said he didn't have the courage to fight back. He simply smiled, walked away, and said one thing that silenced everyone. "I don't need to shout to prove I have a voice." That line became a story people would later tell, not about pride, but about real strength. Because you see, the weak fear being misunderstood, but the strong, they allow others to misunderstand them. They understand that time will defend them far better than any argument ever could. That's why, in Stoic philosophy, silence is not fear. It's mastery. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When someone offends you, remember that it is their character being revealed, not yours." The strong do not react to every insult. They know that reaction is a form of slavery. But silence is freedom. We live in a world that glorifies noise. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated. But the Stoics understood that true power isn't about being heard. It's about knowing when not to speak. The weak need noise to feel alive. The strong can be silent because they've already found themselves. There are battles you win with words, and there are battles you only win with silence. A wise person knows the difference. They know when to speak to elevate, and when to stay silent to preserve dignity. Remember this, silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've refused to lower yourself into a fight beneath your character. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you that disturbs you, but how you react to it." And silence is the noblest reaction of all, because when you remain silent, you're not allowing someone else's chaos to control your peace. You're no longer a prisoner of anger, pride, or ego. You've become the master of your emotions, calm, unshaken, and free. Think about it. How many times have you tried to explain yourself, to defend your intentions, to argue, to make them see your heart, only to realize they were never listening? Because some people don't want to understand you. They just want to win. And in those battles, silence is the only victory that keeps your dignity intact. The wise remain silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they refuse to say what doesn't need to be said. They listen more deeply, not to reply, but to understand. And in that stillness, they find the kind of strength that no argument could ever give. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean. The waves crash loudly, the wind howls, everything is in chaos. But deep below the surface, the water is still. That's what true strength feels like. Being able to remain calm beneath the storms of life. Because the storms outside can't touch the peace within you. Someday you'll realize this truth, that silence is the language of the wise, the mature, the strong. It's not the absence of voice. It's the presence of peace. It's the moment you no longer need validation, apology, or revenge. You simply smile, walk away, and let time speak for you. When you stay silent in the face of insult, you've already risen above the insulter. When you stay silent amid chaos, you've already conquered your anger. And when you stay silent long enough to hear your own soul, you've found a strength the world cannot take away. That is the highest form of Stoic power. Not to dominate others, but to rule yourself. Not to prove that you're strong, but to become so still that your silence itself commands respect. If you're learning the power of silence, leave a comment below saying, "I choose peace over being right." And if this message spoke to you, hit like and subscribe, not just for more Stoic wisdom, but to remind yourself every single day that peace is your real strength and silence is how you protect it. You can tell a person's strength not by how loud they speak, but by how calm they stay when provoked. That's what the Stoics understood. Silence isn't emptiness. It's energy under control. The louder the world gets, the rarer this power becomes. Think about it. Anyone can argue. Anyone can shout back. But holding your peace when someone misjudges you? That's mastery. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once told a student, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." He wasn't discouraging conversation. He was teaching proportion. Because silence isn't the absence of words. It's the presence of thought. When we stop reacting, something shifts inside us. We begin to hear our own mind, unfiltered. We start to see how often anger disguises fear, and how much of our speech is just the ego defending its fragile shell. The Stoics practiced a form of self-restraint that went deeper than politeness. It was about discipline of perception, the space between stimulus and response. Marcus Aurelius called it the mind's fortress, a place no insult could reach unless you opened the gate. Try to remember your last argument. That moment you felt your pulse rising, the urge to win, to have the final word. In that instant, silence feels impossible, even cowardly. But when you manage to hold it, even for a few seconds, you notice something. The storm passes. The world doesn't end. And the one who stays calm walks away with dignity intact. Silence is not retreat. It's strategy. It lets others reveal who they are, while you conserve your energy for what truly matters. Seneca once wrote, "No one can insult you without your consent." The Stoic refuses to grant that consent. They see that dignity isn't something to be defended. It's something to be lived. When you stay quiet, you give yourself a chance to choose wisely. To decide whether your words will heal or harm, whether speaking serves truth or just your ego. That's the real power of silence. It gives you the freedom to respond, not react. So next time someone tests your patience, pause, breathe. Don't rush to defend yourself. Let your silence speak for you, because silence says, I am in control. I am not your mirror. I choose peace over pride. That's what Stoicism teaches. True power isn't about domination, but self-command. If this message resonated with you, take a moment. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who could use a little quiet strength today. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time your silence changed the outcome of a situation? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. One of the hardest truths to accept in this life is that you will be misunderstood, even by people who love you. And sometimes, especially, by them. When you start changing, when you choose peace over drama, silence over gossip, or stillness over reaction, people will say you've grown cold. They'll wonder what's wrong with you. They'll label your calm as pride, your boundaries as distance, your independence as rebellion. But here's what I want you to remember. Being misunderstood is not a sign of failure. It's often the first sign of growth. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, a man leading an empire, wrote in his private journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He wasn't writing that to sound wise. He was reminding himself that explanation is a poor substitute for example. He knew the world would misread his silence, his mercy, his restraint. Yet he stayed steady, because the wise do not need to announce their virtue. They live it quietly, day after day, until truth speaks for them. I once counseled a man named Robert. In his 60s, he'd just left a company he'd worked for 30 years. Everyone thought he was making a mistake. "You're too old to start over," they said. "You're throwing away your security." Robert simply smiled and replied, "Security without peace isn't worth keeping." People didn't understand him then. But a year later, when they saw him calm, healthy, and working on something that finally made him happy, they said, "I get it now." And he told me, I stopped needing them to get it. That's when everything changed. That's the kind of strength misunderstanding gives you. The strength of self-trust. Because every time you resist the urge to explain, you tell your soul, I trust you more than I need to be seen. That's spiritual maturity. Epictetus once said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That line always makes me pause. It's not about playing small. It's about knowing that truth often looks foolish in its early stages. The person walking away from chaos looks cold. The one choosing forgiveness looks weak. The one rejecting gossip looks arrogant. But those judgments are simply the noise people make when they don't understand peace yet. There's a quiet grace in letting yourself be misread. It's a test of detachment. Can you hold to your path, even when others twist your story? That's the Stoic challenge. To love truth more than reputation. To prefer peace over being liked. The next time you're tempted to defend yourself, ask, would I rather be understood by them or be at peace with myself? Because every explanation is a small negotiation between your need to be right and your need to be free. And freedom always costs the comfort of being understood. Remember this. You cannot grow and still fit perfectly into people's old picture of you. They will see your silence as distance, your healing as arrogance, your calm as indifference. But none of that is your business. Your business is to live rightly, to act with integrity, and to keep walking. Let time and truth meet in their own season. They always do. If you've ever been misunderstood for simply choosing yourself, for choosing peace, boundaries, or healing, this message is for you. You are not alone. You are not cold. You are simply evolving beyond the need to explain. If that resonates, take a moment to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with someone walking through the quiet valley of being misunderstood. Because sometimes, The most misunderstood people are the ones finally beginning to live in truth. And before you go, tell me in the comments, when was the last time being misunderstood taught you something about your strength? We spend so much of our lives seeking permission from friends, family, colleagues, even strangers, as if their recognition defines our worth. And yet, the Stoics remind us that the only approval that truly matters is the one we give ourselves. I remember a man named David in his late 50s who came to me feeling exhausted. He had spent decades trying to earn respect from his peers and admiration from his children. Every project, every decision, every act was weighed against how it might be judged. He said, "I'm tired of being someone everyone thinks I should be, instead of the person I am." That sentence stopped me. Because David wasn't alone. We all carry that burden. Epictetus wrote, "Don't seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." The lesson here is subtle, but powerful. True contentment doesn't come from changing others' perception. It comes from aligning your own actions with your principles and accepting yourself, regardless of how the world interprets them. David began small. He decided that each day he would make one choice based solely on his values, not on what would impress anyone else. At first, it was terrifying. His colleagues questioned him. His family didn't understand. But slowly, a remarkable thing happened. He began to feel peace. His energy returned. He stopped needing constant reassurance. His life felt lighter. This is the power of inner approval. It's not arrogance. It's not stubbornness. It's a quiet sovereignty of the soul, a state where external validation becomes optional. When you practice it, criticism no longer wounds as deeply. Praise no longer intoxicates. You act with integrity because integrity itself is enough. Think of it like a lighthouse standing on a cliff. It doesn't need the ships to applaud its brightness. It simply shines. It fulfills its purpose quietly, faithfully, and consistently. You, too, can be that lighthouse in your life. So, when you feel the urge to explain, to justify, to perform for someone else's approval, pause. Ask yourself, do I need their approval or mine? If you choose inner approval, everything changes. You stop being pulled by the tides of judgment. You start steering your own course. You begin to measure success not by applause, but by peace. If this resonates, take a moment to like this video, subscribe for more reflections on Stoic living, and share it with someone who needs permission to honor themselves. And tell me in the comments, when was the last time you acted purely on your values without worrying about what others would think? And how did that feel? There comes a point in life when you realize that defending yourself has become a habit, not a necessity. Every comment, every criticism, every sideways glance no longer requires a rebuttal, because you've grown beyond the need to justify your existence to anyone. I want you to picture a man I know, Richard, in his early 60s. He had spent years explaining himself, to co-workers, to family, to friends, always feeling a little exhausted, a little unseen. One day, after a long conversation with his adult daughter, he said to me, "I don't need to explain who I am anymore. If they don't see it, that's their story, not mine." That, right there, is the essence of Stoic freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we cannot control what others think, only what we do. When you let go of defense, you reclaim energy, focus, and peace. You stop being a participant in every judgment and become the observer of your own life. You stop responding to the noise and start listening to your inner voice.
It's not easy. The ego rebels. It whispers, they'll think you're weak, they'll misunderstand you. But the truth is, defense often makes misunderstandings louder. Silence, however, has weight. It allows your life, your character, and your choices to speak for themselves. I've seen this with patients, friends, and in my own life. The moment you stop explaining, you start living. People who matter, those who truly understand or care, recognize your integrity without you uttering a word. And those who don't? Their misunderstanding is not your burden. Imagine a river flowing past a boulder. The water doesn't argue with the rock. It simply moves around it, persistent, calm, unstoppable. That is the kind of power silence gives you. A way to navigate life without friction, without unnecessary conflict. So if you've been worn down by the need to defend yourself, today is your invitation to pause. Breathe. Let go. Trust yourself. Your life, your actions, and your integrity are enough. If this reflection spoke to you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe for more insights on inner freedom, and share it with someone who is still exhausted by the need to explain themselves. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. When was the last time you let go of defending yourself? And how did that freedom feel?